This man is the largest publisher in Japan. He's just,
I think this is the best I've ever read in English. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And my question is, what do you see the personal character of Donald Trump, the context of historical presence? I'm enthusiastic Trumpist, so I believe he's more than Nixon, more than Reagan, and as great as George Washington. He was a genius fighting against mainstream media and establishment during the presidential campaign. Then second, and I think this Trump presidency is a kind of Trump revolution who can change everything. What do you see this aspect of revolution? That's my question.
All right, let me take them one by one. Vulgar, ignorant, stupid, a lout. These are the things they said about President Andrew Jackson. Egotistical, a publicity hound, a lightweight. These are the things they said about Theodore Roosevelt. Donald Trump is a different kind of leader. It is both unfair and unreasonable to think that he can be judged after a month of being president, never mind 4 years. And we've often seen the greatness in our presidents after they have left the scene. Whenever I'm asked who is the greatest president in your lifetime, that's really difficult because that would cover, of course, Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon. But I would have to say the greatest president in my lifetime is Dwight Eisenhower, a quiet president, the hidden hand president, who's really running things but trying to give you the impression that he has no idea what's going on. And you have prosperity and peace under 8 years of Eisenhower, who resists deficit spending for the military, despite the fact that he's a military man. He tells the Pentagon, you already have the capacity to kill everybody on the planet 3 times. I'm not paying for 5. So I think that Trump has leadership qualities of courage, of stamina, his physical stamina. I can tell you, having worked on and off for him for almost 40 years, he is an extraordinarily stubborn individual. When he sets his mind on a goal, he cannot be talked out of it, and he will not quit until he attains it. That's the man I want to be president of the United States. He is also one of the tightest skinflints in the entire world. He runs his companies without waste, without fraud. He runs a tight budget. He looks at the bottom line. That's the guy I want in charge of federal spending. So I think he has these qualities. The reason I think he could succeed in terms of federal spending is because I worked on the Senate side, I worked on the House side, I worked for a House Budget Committee member. And there's hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, of fraud and waste in the budget. But in every case, somebody put it there, and somebody will work to keep it there. Donald Trump has no secret allegiance to the widget manufacturers because he took a big campaign contribution. He doesn't owe anyone because of the manner in which he was elected. And that gives him the independence to be immune to the cries of the special interests who had it, too good for too long. Trump's election is a piece of a much larger mosaic that is going on around the world. You saw it in the UK. I think you're going to see it in France. I think that you are likely to see it ultimately in Italy. One only need to look at the video images in France and Germany and Belgium of swarms of young Arab thugs, Muslim thugs, assaulting people, raping women, raping children, destroying public property, turning over and burning cars, defecating in public fountains, defacing public property. If you can't see that wave is headed this way, if you can't see that is the result of open borders, then there's something wrong with you. So this turn away from globalism, this turn away from a global economy back to an economy and a government that puts American interests first, not world interests first, not our allies' interests first, but our interests first, is sweeping the globe. And I think Trump is the American manifestation of that wave. This is the last best chance we have to halt the decline of the last 30 years and turn this country around. Thank you.
I think I'll hold this. Brad Parscale was a very not underrated, but not reported on, driving force in the Trump campaign. And I haven't read enough about him. He from San Antonio, he ran something called the Alamo, and he was one of the great Rust Belt, putting the whole landscape together. Can you tell me what he's doing now? And
I think what you refer to is the larger phenomenon that Donald Trump kind of recognized in his campaign, invested in, that with the technological advance of the handheld device, a majority of people are no longer getting their political news from television. They're getting it on their cell phone or their iPad. And if you want to watch CNN, you've got to go through the internet to go to CNN. Therefore, when you get to the internet, it doesn't take you long to figure out that there are better things to watch, more honest and more accurate. And this gives rise to the alternative media. Brad's role was in social media and the alternative media, where communications are much, much less expensive than network television and more targetable. If you just want to reach Black women between the ages of 18 and 65, you can. Or if you just want to reach veterans, or if you just want to reach, lawyers, you can reach anyone in a very pinpointed way. So it was reported in several papers, one of the Dallas papers, I think, and another, maybe a National Journal piece, that the Trump campaign, working with less money, ran a very sophisticated, net-based campaign that was very effective. And as you point out, zeroing in on the key constituencies in Michigan and the Midwest. The last I had read, Brad was going to, who I don't know, I only know by reputation, which is good. It was going to be active in a pro-Trump agenda organization, probably a non-profit, to support the president's agenda, doing the same kind of grassroots organizing and mobilization.
okay, and what's happened to Dave Mossy?
I have no idea. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you very much. Go ahead. Just go ahead with your question and I'll repeat it.
I did have a hard time locating you on Twitter today. I don't know what that was all about. But there we go. All right, thank you. Thank you for coming here and thank you all for organizing this for us. I do have, thank you for so much for referencing Ike. He had a PBS special on him right before the election called Ike Secret War. It was very great. I saw a lot of parallels between he and Donald Trump. My question for you is about term limits. I realize that they're very important. Possibly, maybe there could be some type of executive order, and it ties into the other executive orders that have already been made. Do we get a chance to, will they go to the floor? Will they get voted on so they can become law? Some of these executive orders that I think are so important. And about term limits. do we, the people, or we just by voting for or not voting for, you know, congressmen and senators, is that gonna take care of it? Will they be put, I mean, almost growing up, there was like a
Okay.
2-term and a 4-term. And, my last question for you is about, Flynn and Vice President Pence. And the fact that, the media reported that there was that Flynn knew of some traffickers that were friends of Pence, and that Pence said, no, I don't believe that. And we could just elaborate. Thank you.
All right, well, there's multiple questions here. Let me try them one by one. Executive orders are unilateral. They don't require the action of the Congress. The president is somewhat limited in the scope of them. You can't change the Constitution by executive order. The enshrined terms for congressmen and senators are in the Constitution, and therefore require a constitutional amendment to change them. We've amended our Constitution many times, and in my opinion, this would be a great amendment, because it ends the career politicians at the trough, it ensures fresh blood in the political process, it ends family dynasties where seats are handed down from generation to generation. And therefore, I think the president should champion a constitutional amendment for term limits. They are, by the way, extremely popular with the voters. I'm unfamiliar with the allegations regarding the vice president and Flynn. In all honesty, I'm on this book tour, which is a bit of a whirlwind, so therefore I don't get to sit at the computer and read as much as I would like. So I can't comment on that specifically. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hey, Roger, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
I hope that the secret warrant does not result in you being placed on double secret probation.
I suspect that's coming.
Are you the only prominent Republican who really knows how to spin?
How to,
Spin.
well,
While also being sincere.
if you're saying how to best present your arguments to the media, no, I think we have some talented people in the party. I'd like to see them more in this White House, in all honesty. But I'm not going to go overboard on this. The president's entitled to pick his team. If you look at his record in business, when he's tried something that doesn't work, he changes it up and tries something else that does work. In this way, he's like Franklin Roosevelt. And when people turn in a mediocre performance, or they don't serve the overall enterprise or the leader, they can be replaced. You have to be, as Nixon said, a good butcher. So I think that he will achieve his goal. It may take him a while to figure out the Washington game. It's different than the New York game, but his skills and his instincts are what have got him here. He paid nothing for polling. There was no polling to tell him what to say and how to say it. That all came from his gut, from his brain, from his instinct. His opponents were spending tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars on sophisticated polling to find out what the voters wanted to hear so they could say it, or say what they wanted to say in the way that was most palatable to the voters. It's how the business works. But Donald Trump spoke from his instinct, and he seems to have hit the right chord. He got 4 million votes more than Ronald Reagan in the Republican primaries.
Thanks for being here.
Sure, thank you.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
some of us that worked very hard on the campaign thought we were going to have a little break or a little honeymoon, and we are not. We turn the TVs on and we see these swarms of people protesting at town halls, and those of us with a discerning eye, we know it's fake. It's organized. They're told what to say.
Yes.
How can we, what can we do now as supporters to counteract this effort? Your thoughts, please.
I think it's very, very important that we mobilize once again the silent majority that elected Donald Trump. I was speaking to my friend Chris Ruddy at Newsmax, and he's working on perhaps a series of rallies across the country in which grassroots activists can show up and speak up for the president and his agenda. I agree with you. This is AstroTurf. It is largely being paid for by George Soros and